was singing the national anthems of the United States and of Armenia, and listening to one of the survivors sing the national anthem of the United States. What a beautiful, beautiful. I have tried throughout my career, as many of you know, to keep the faith and to do exactly what we need to do, which is to keep the victims of genocide in our hearts and in our prayers, for demanding also that we honestly represent historical facts and that we never forget those moments in history, that we never forget the horror, that we never forget the suffering. And that is why I have introduced in the United States Senate Resolution 399, which is the Armenian Genocide Resolution, along with my resolution is simple and clear. It calls upon the United States government to properly recognize the Armenian genocide and to use the lessons of what clearly was an atrocity of historic proportions to prevent future crimes against humanity. It is time that the United States join 19 other nations, including Belgium, Canada, France, Italy, and the European Union, that have formally recognized the actions carried out by the Ottoman Empire from 1915 to 1923, in fact, as genocide, as defined in Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. Article 2 says, acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group is genocide. The Armenian genocide is not and should not be an issue for debate. It is a fact of the nearly 2 million deportations and the 1.5 million who were killed. It was one of the incidents upon which the Genocide Convention was predicated. And to make this point, our resolution added a new clause from the 1951 United States filing before the International Court of Justice concerning the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide. In that filing, the United States of America stated that, quote, the Roman persecution of the Christians, the Turkish massacre of Armenians, the extermination of millions of Jews and Poles by the Nazis are outstanding examples of the crime of genocide. That was the United States position then. It should be the position of the United States of America today. To recognize the genocide, therefore, is not a new policy of the United States, and it is not, as some American policymakers have recently suggested, a subject for historical debate among scholars. We must pledge ourselves today that we will not and we cannot make it the policy of the United States to engage in genocide denial or bury our heads in the sand to suit an ill-defined political purpose. Any such political argument, any nuanced approach, serves only to empower those around the world today who would use genocide as a weapon of war to find a way to cover up their horrific actions in a shroud of convenient denial. Let us be perfectly clear. What happened from 1915 to 1923 was most assuredly, by definition, that is all historical and human, nothing other than a blatant act of genocide. There is no other word for it, there is no other euphemism for it, there is no avoiding it, and there are no excuses by the United States for it. And part of this commemoration, we must fully commit ourselves to acknowledging the fundamental truth. An acknowledgement that must come from Turkey, and it must come from our own government. I find it incredibly difficult to understand as a senior member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, when I have nominees come before the committee and they cannot use the words from their lips, the Armenian genocide. When our own country has in document after document, in fact, referred to what happened in that period of time as the Armenian genocide. Our State Department, our diplomats, should not be constrained in acknowledging the clear and specific historical record that was developed by their predecessors. What happened in 1915 was and should forever be referred to as the Armenian genocide, plain and simple. We must be willing to tell truth to power, call it what it is, and commemorate it. We must be willing, as the doctor said, we must be willing to express our concerns and our objections at the highest levels that Turkey continues to criminally prosecute people for merely discussing the Armenian genocide. As I have said before, despite whatever geopolitical pressures may ask us to bend like a willow in the breeze, let us be like a strong oak, tall and strong, firmly rooted in the facts, in the truth, in a history that cannot be denied and will not be bent. I pledge again this year that I will continue to be a watchdog in Washington in the United States Senate. As I always have, I will continue to scrutinize every nominee. I will continue to push the people we have in place around the world who represent the United States to recognize the horrific events of 1915 as a genocide. And I will continue, as I have throughout nearly 20 years from my time in the House and now in the Senate, to make certain the foreign policy of the United States reflects the deepest, most profound sense of moral outrage the Armenian genocide demands. I do not want to wait until 2015, the centennial commemoration of the Armenian genocide, to pass this resolution. I want to see it be done now. Adolf Hitler was cynically asked, who today remembers the Armenians? History has written the answer in the hearts of all good people everywhere. It is clearer today than ever before what that answer is. We, the people, remember. The world remembers. 97 years later, the children, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren of survivors who perished remember. The friends of Armenia remember. In the halls of Congress in Washington and in the streets of New York or across the country and around the world, people of goodwill remember everywhere, and that is what we do today. This year determines where I continue in the United States Senate or not, but I can tell you this, for so long as I am a United States Senator, I will not cease, I will not stop until we have a commemoration that actually has the United States of America.
Although 75 years have passed since the beginning of the Armenian genocide, we are blessed today that 4 survivors of the genocide are with us. I am honored to introduce them to you today, and I know you want to applaud. I'm going to introduce some, and then I'm going to ask you for a thunderous applause. They deserve it. First, Paris Kalusyan. Paris is 102 years old, and she was singing the national anthem. She was born in Tammuz. Could you get a stand for me? Asha Lewis is 100 years old and was born in Shabin, Karahisar. is 99 years old. She's one of the young ones, and she was born in India. And there's a chance to get up. They're so proud. And finally, Stinati Jiragostian, also young at 99, from Rosa, is here with us today. Please recognize them with thunderous applause. They are escorted today by Al-Armeni Adi Elian, Executive Director of the New York Armenian Home in Flushing, New York. One more time, a round of applause. We look forward to them coming next year, where, as the Senator just said, we will celebrate the recognition of this terrible event. For the past 2.5 decades, Senator Chuck Schumer has been a leader on national issues and a tireless fighter for New York and for good people everywhere. New York senior senator and a native of Brooklyn, Chuck Schumer is a member of the Senate's Democratic leadership team and has been a longtime friend of one of the co-founders of this event, who we lost last year, Mr. Sam Azadian, and indeed of the entire Armenian-American community throughout his long career in public service, in the New York Assembly, as a member of Congress, and now in the United States Senate. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the podium to the Honorable Senator from New York, our good friend, Chuck Schumer.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Now, it's an honor and a privilege to be with you here today once again. I never miss, as you never do, rain or shine. So I'd like to extend my greetings to all. Harif. Don't succeed at first. Try again. I'd like to thank Dr. Mary Papazian for that nice introduction. It's wonderful to see you again, wherever you are. It's wonderful to see you again, and I want to congratulate Mary on becoming president of Southern Connecticut State College just this past February. I'd like to thank my good colleague, Senator Menendez, who has taken such an outstanding lead on this issue, as well as my friend and colleague in the House of Representatives, who you'll hear from shortly, Congressman Frank Pallone. I'd like to pay my respect to His Eminence, the members of the clergy who are here. Thank you for your leadership and steadfastness. And most of all, I pay a special tribute to the 4 beautiful young ladies who were introduced a few minutes ago to our survivors. Thank you. You are the testament that we have. And one final person who always reminds me of this is one of my staffers. When she was 18 years old, Corinne Borkarian was a high school student in Armenia, and she wanted to come to this country. And a few of her relatives called me up when I was congressman, and we helped her get into this country. Today, she is head of all of my immigration bureau and helps thousands of people around the world become proud Americans as she has. So I'd like to introduce the great Corinne Borkarian. Now, I come here every year because I believe from the bottom of my heart it is a sacred duty to honor the memory of those who cannot speak for themselves, to honor those whose memory calls us through the decades to justice, the innocent victims of the Metz Yeger, the Armenian genocide. Remembering those murdered millions matters.
It matters as we seek justice for the unspeakable. It matters as we honor the suffering and eternal souls of the millions of innocents who died in that tragedy, who starved to death by design in that tragedy. And it matters year after year, event after event, resolution after resolution, and, Your Eminences, prayer after prayer. We must bring the full light of day to this historic tragedy. We have a moral responsibility to never forget. And so we gather here today. There are many families of survivors in addition to these four powerful women here today. They never forget the pain and suffering, and we shall never forget their struggle, their sacrifice, and their indomitability, making sure that the world remembers. Unfortunately, just as we're seeing efforts to suppress the true facts of history when it comes to the Armenian genocide, we haven't learned enough from past tragedies. Since the genocide in Armenia 99 years ago, countless innocent victims have suffered as a result. In a few minutes, I will leave you and speak on Yom HaShoah at Temple Emmanuel about the Jewish Holocaust. And we all know what Hitler said when he was told, "What will the world think of us if we sacrifice the Jews?" He was told, no one remembered the Armenians. We have since seen Holocausts in Cambodia, in the Balkans, in Rwanda, and in the Sudan. And every time genocide occurs, we say never again. Time and time again, our societies promise that we will make up for these crimes by stopping them from being repeated in other countries. On too many occasions, we have failed to keep that promise. And let me say this, at the root cause of our failure to keep the promise is in the memory, in the minds of those terrible tyrants who permit holocausts to occur, who perpetrate holocausts, who lead holocausts, who create genocide, is the very simple view that because the Armenian Holocaust has been brushed under the rug by so many, that they can get away with it too. So today we have a sacred duty, not only to those who perished in Armenia, but to those who have perished in the subsequent Holocaust, and to those who will perish unknown in future Holocausts, to never, never, never forget. I say to you today, there is only one thing as bad as genocide. It is the denial of genocide, because it leads to future genocide. So our mission here is sacred. Those gathered here are part of the solution. You have optimism for the future, both in Armenia and in here in America, even as you remember the difficult past which led us to this place. In Washington, I am working for the future. I am working hand in hand, and I'm a lead co-sponsor of my friend, Senator Menendez's bill, Senate Resolution 399, the Armenian Genocide Resolution. I will continue to support and fight for that legislation because it ensures our foreign policy appropriately reflects the true title of genocide. It is, as I said, the best way to help future generations remember. Armenians who lost their lives during this terrible, terrible genocide must not be forgotten, nor should we, as a people, fail to heed the lessons of this terrible atrocity. The truth is, we owe even more than this beautiful and somber memorial service to the millions of victims who perished in Armenia. We owe it to them and to ourselves and to our country to to do everything within our power to make this world a safer place for all people and for all countries. And we do that by doing what we do today, day in and day out. This generation and the future generations who are fortunately here with us today. We do it by teaching our neighbors about our cultures, our history, and about genocide. I am sure many of you never feel too far from the streets of Yerevan or Gyumri. We must share the traditions of those communities here in Brooklyn, in Bayside, in Tenafly, in New York, and across the country. Americans are indeed resilient. Your families and friends are some of the hardest working Americans I know. Almost 1.5 million people identify themselves as Armenian Americans, and America is a better place because of the 1.5 million Armenian Americans. For every one of you, and for all of us, we must preserve the history of the Armenian genocide as a crime against humanity, and fight evil every day so it never happens again. Never, never, never forget. Ketsey Hayatan.
So much, Senator. Throughout his long and distinguished career in Congress, Frank Pallone Jr. has played a critical role in the House of Representatives on a wide range of issues important to Armenia and the Armenian American community. As founder of the Congressional Caucus on Armenian Issues, Congressman Pallone has coordinated the efforts of this diverse, bipartisan coalition to help foster greater ties between the United States and Armenia. Over the past quarter century, Congressman Pallone has sponsored and supported every single piece of legislation of importance to the Armenian American community, whether it's focused on genocide recognition or on aid to Armenia or Karabakh. We're extremely fortunate to have the steadfast support of such a distinguished and respected representative who is a senior member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee and the highest-ranking Democrat on its subcommittee on health. On a personal note, Frank is my congressman. He lives across the street from my church, St. Stephanos Armenian Church in Elberon, and every year purchases his fair share of shish kebab and papava, for which we are very appreciative. Congressman Pallone, we have no better friend than you in the House, and well, anyway, it's a privilege to welcome you.
Let me thank my constituent Armin and also Mary for being the MCs today of this program. I was thinking about what I would say today because I've been here for so many years. And first I think I want to apologize on behalf of the U.S. Congress for the fact that we have not been able to pass the Genocide Recognition Resolution. I say that deeply because in many ways I'm almost ashamed of the fact that I have to come here every year and say that still has not happened. But on the other hand, I want to be optimistic this afternoon. If you listen to my colleagues, both Carolyn Maloney and our two senators, Menendez and Chuck Schumer, they were very optimistic about the future in terms of our ability to ultimately achieve genocide recognition in the U.S. Congress, and also in terms of what's happening with the Armenian community, Armenian Americans, and Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. And so I want to be optimistic because I think we have every reason to be, and it's because of all of you. Many of you come here every year, and certainly the survivors to the four have been here as far as I know. They seem like they're here every year as well. But the fact of the matter is we have reason to be optimistic because so much has been achieved by all of you, and I just want to mention a few of the things. First of all, in the Congress, we do have an Armenia caucus, and there are many members of the Armenia caucus, both the congressmen as well as senators. This year on April 25th, we are going to have a commemoration in the Senate. We invite all of you to come to that. But I don't mention the caucus just because of our genocide recognition ceremony. I mention it because all of you work very hard to educate members of Congress to join the caucus and work not only for genocide recognition, but for everything that relates to trying to protect and improve the relationship between Armenia and the United States, and do things to make Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh stronger. And I cannot emphasize enough this afternoon that there is an Armenian nation. In fact, there are two Armenian nations, both the Republic of Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. And you know, absolutely. You know, I was at an event one day, and one of the Armenian Americans said to me, they said, you know, have you ever read the Bible? And I said, of course I've read the Bible. And they said, well, how many nations, how many countries do you read in the Bible? They mentioned, I think, Assyria, such a powerful nation, or the Chaldeans, or the list goes on. There are hundreds of peoples and nations mentioned in the Bible that no one even knows about anymore. And that is not true of the Armenians. Not only have the Armenians survived throughout the genocide of 1915 and other genocides even before then, other pogroms before then, but now they actually have their own country. And we are going to do our best in Congress, with your help, to make sure that the Republic of Armenia and Karabakh continue to thrive economically, militarily, in every way. And it's a testimony to all of you and the diaspora that they do continue to survive and thrive and improve economically, and that they become more and more market economies, and the wealth of those countries grow from where they were a few years ago. Now, I also want to mention another thing. You know, every year when we talk about the genocide resolution, we regret the fact, of course, that we haven't passed it in Congress. But we've made a lot of progress because more and more people are aware of the Armenian genocide today than they were 5 or 10 years ago. More and more countries, more and more states have recognized it because of your efforts. And it was a very interesting phenomena a couple of years ago when we had a committee hearing on the genocide resolution and were able to pass it out of committee. Because I remember there were members of Congress every year that would get up and deny that the genocide occurred. No one did that this time. Everyone got up and said, they either got up and said that they supported the resolution and were going to vote for it, or they articulated that they weren't going to vote for it even though the genocide occurred, only for diplomatic reasons or economic reasons with Turkey. They never denied that the genocide occurred. And I know you may say to yourself, well, what does that matter? It does matter, because there are very few people now that are saying there wasn't a genocide. They simply talk about whether it's politically wise or not to actually pass the resolution. It's a very, very different phenomenon. And the last thing I want to mention is how proud I am to see that not only do Armenian Americans and Armenians all over the world come forward and talk about the genocide recognition for Armenia, but they're always in the forefront of saying that genocides occurred in other parts of the world. Every time in Washington that we had a rally during the Rwanda genocide, or during what was happening in Sudan or Cambodia or wherever it was always the Armenians and the Armenian organizations that were the first ones to organize those rallies, because they recognize, as all of you do, that when we go out and say that we need to have the Armenian genocide recognized, we're also saying that we're going to prevent other genocides from occurring down the road. So, I want to thank you. I started out by apologizing for the Congress, but I want to thank all of you for all you do, because you have accomplished a lot, a great deal, and there's a lot more that will be accomplished. And I know we're getting close to the 100th anniversary, but I tell you, there is no question in my mind that the day will come when the Congress, and even in Turkey itself, will see genocide recognition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman, and work you have done on our behalf and on all of our behalf. I'm pleased now to invite two legendary artists from Armenia, Ruben Matevosyan and Raisa Murgadisyan, who will sing Darki Lao and Akparavan. Both are in New York to participate in the 20th anniversary concert of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Armenia, to be held on Saturday, April 28th at the Merkin Hall in New York City.
If I may. Before I invite Dr. Papazian back to the podium, I do want to take this opportunity, and Senator Schumer stole my thunder a little bit, but I do want to take the opportunity to really congratulate my co-MC of these many years, the other Dr. Papazian, Dr. Mary Papazian, for her recent and extremely well-deserved appointment as president of Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven. Mary is the first woman of Armenian background in the history of the United States to lead a university, and only the fourth Armenian American to serve in such a position. As president of Southern Connecticut, Mary will